Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first story is titled, I Don't Care About Your Excuse, Hand It In or You Get a Zero. This is a story from 4th grade. We were given a major project in English where we had to write and publish our own children's books, including drawing pictures and binding them. I went all out on this thing, working on it during class, lunch, and at home. I finished it at home 2 days before it was due and put it in my bag to take to school the next day. Now a little bit of a backstory. My mum and brother, 3 years younger, were extremely abusive to me, with my brother constantly tormenting me and destroying my stuff with no consequences. So my brother went through my room, again, destroying anything he could get his hands on, snapping my pencils, my CDs, and tearing up my project into little pieces. I went in the next day and told my teacher that my brother destroyed my project and could I please have a week to turn in a replacement. She told me that she doesn't care about my excuses and that if I don't get it in the next day I would get a fail on the project. The next day I delivered a Ziploc containing the pieces of my project and dropped it on her desk. She gave me a B+ out of pity, I think. The next story is titled, Temp Ban. Please reconsider? Okay, perma ban. My nephew is really into online gaming. He knows I am as well, so thought I would appreciate this story. Sorry if some of the details are fuzzy, it is a retelling from something told to me by a hyperactive 16-year-old. Companies that do online gaming are starting to push back against toxic players that make the game less fun for everyone by issuing bans for racist comments, threats, etc. Depending on the game, it might start with a warning, then a 24-hour ban, then a 7-day ban, then a permanent ban. A lot of these games are free, so a perma-banned player could create a new account, but all progress and benefits they earn are lost, so it's still a big deal. This one game in particular has a forum where players can discuss and appeal bans. So, one day a person posts complaining they received a 24-hour ban for what they considered minor offenses, like saying butts or boobs, and could they check the chat logs to reconsider the temp ban? Their response: we checked the chat logs and over the course of that single gaming session you made several racist, homophobic and sexist remarks, as well as threatened to go to another player's home and punch them in the face. We're not sure how we missed that. The 24-hour ban is overturned. Your account is now permanently suspended. Thanks for bringing this to our attention. The next story is titled, Manager Wouldn't Help When Short-Staffed. Had to do the work herself at the end of the night. When I was in high school I had a part-time job working at a local restaurant. One day I came in and was scheduled to wash dishes, no big deal. I walked into the back and came to find out that the morning shift did not have a dishwasher, therefore there was a mountain of dishes. No bueno. On top of all of that, we got slammed that night. As a minor, I was required to take a 30-minute break in order to work my full shift, 4 to 10 p.m. I believe. As I clocked out for my break, I asked my manager if she could have someone cover my position while I was on break to prevent an even worse situation than was already at hand. She responded, won't be able to. You'll just have to stay late and finish it. An important thing to keep in mind is that this manager was notoriously lazy and unhelpful. She never lended a helping hand to get things done faster. She would rather stay 3 hours past close sitting in the office waiting for us to finish our closing duties instead of coming out and helping and getting everything done in a timely manner. She also was not very familiar with child labor laws in Ohio. Since I was a minor, not only did I have to take a 30-minute break, I also could not work past 11 p.m. on school nights. So after clocking back in from my break, I resumed washing the mountain of dishes that had accumulated. I took my time and didn't rush to get everything cleaned, but also wasn't going extremely slow on purpose. 10:59 rolls around and I walk into the office to tell her that I am leaving. She asked, got everything done? Nope. I said. It's a Wednesday night. Can't work past 11 p.m. Labor laws. I left the water turned on for you. There's still a lot left. The look on her face was priceless. I clocked out with the biggest smile on my face, knowing that she was going to have to leave the office and do something for once. Asked another manager the next day to see what time she clocked out. 1:15 a.m. The next story is titled, This Lady Wanted a Fresh Donut so I Gave It to Her. When I was 15 I got my first paid job working for the fair. It was a pretty big fair that traveled across Canada and along the east coast of the US, ending in Florida for Christmas. If you've ever been to the PNE, Pacific National Exhibition, CNE, Canadian National Exhibition, Red River X, Calgary Stampede and whatever they call it in Edmonton and Regina, that's the one. I loved this summer job because it was short, only a week, as I did not travel, and gave me enough cash to get through the summer. I worked for the privately owned donut vendor, which tasted better and paid better than the show donut vendors. Fast forward 4 years when I decided to travel with the show. I was 19 and it was easier to travel at this point cause I could sign my own forms, and being 19 I needed more money for school and the like. We start in my home city and make our way across the country, visiting city after city. We were in Edmonton when our story really begins. Now the travel crew is pretty small and we hire our bagging cashier locally. I, along with senior crew members, are in charge of training the baggers, re-oiling the machines, switching out the dough canisters and making sure they are running and putting out donuts in a consistent manner. As I am checking dough levels and teaching a bagger how to efficiently fill bags for the evening rush, I hear a commotion behind me. Cue entitled woman. Karen, no. I want the fresh ones. Bagger, ma'am, these are fresh, I just made them. Karen, no, I want them to be fresh. Make me new ones, I didn't see you make those, they could be old. It was 9 in the morning. At this point in the day, most donuts are made to order, so those donuts wouldn't have been older than 5 minutes. The bagger calls me to turn on his machine to start the donuts. These machines are so temperamental and really old because the owner built them himself many moons ago. But I love them cause they make perfect donuts that travel in a circular conveyor belt in 400-degree oil. They're a lot of fun to watch. I start the machine and scoop out the first few rejects and make 15 donuts. The donuts fall off the belt into the glass case and the bagger slots them into the sugar and into a bag. He hands them to her and she dramatically sighs. Karen, ugh, no. I want the fresh ones and those have touched the old ones. How do I know you didn't mix them up? I don't believe they're fresh. I want fresh donuts. Bagger, ma'am, those are fresh. I made sure to pick only the new ones out. Again she huffs and puffs, so I fire up the machine again, scoop out the rejects and make 15 donuts. This time I grab the new bag and place the bag right under the chute so the donuts have no choice but to fall into the bag. I hand it to the bagger and walk away just to have to turn around again. Karen, no, I want the ones directly out of the oil, that way I know they're fresh. Those ones have cooled down and are not fresh anymore. Me, sorry ma'am, but that is against the policy, the oil is 400 degrees, and besides, they're not done cooking. Karen, I want the fresh ones. Get me your supervisor. My supervisor is off doing supervisor things, and I don't feel like calling her. She's also a lifer and doesn't take flack from anyone, and I know if I call her, and she's busy, this woman will leave crying. So to avoid this and say, I am the supervisor on duty right now and the policy states we can't give you donuts from the oil. There is no policy, but it's common ducking sense. Karen, I have been a patron of this company for so many plus years. I have never been denied a fresh donut. This is so unprofessional. I want to talk to the owner right now. At this point, I'm on day 5 of this show and we work an hour before open to an hour after the close, depending on the show and after some new laws, roughly 16 hours daily. I'm tired of her and in general. That's when I get a brilliant idea. I smile. Me, there is no need for that, I will get you your fresh donuts. I start up the machine again and discard the rejects. I then grab a bag and let the donuts plop into the oil for half a second and scoop them out immediately. Not long enough to get hot, but also not long enough to hold a shape. I then take the bag of dough and sprinkle in some cinnamon sugar and say as sugary as I can muster, here you go, sorry for the inconvenience, enjoy the rest of your day. She smiles smugly, having thought she got her way. About 10 paces later she stuck her hand into the bag and I hear a squeal, a snarl and then swearing. That's when Greg, not his real name, one of the senior machine guys, returned from his break. Greg was a ducking legend when it comes to dealing with Karens. He makes it a hobby to seek them out for fun on his breaks so he can tear into them. He once told a heavy customer in a scooter he would not sell her 50 bags of donuts because he didn't want to be responsible for her coronary and could not have that on his heart, and that she should take her business to the other donut stall. He can be quite savage. I don't condone his behavior and sometimes he scares me, but this is also why I like working under him, because it means Karens never get away with their crap. The women came storming back and demanded a refund and demanded I be fired. He asked why and she screamed, "That idiot sold me a bag of dough." Greg asked me if that was true. I smiled sheepishly and said yes, and explained she did not want the fresh donuts off the belt, she wanted the fresh donuts from the oil and would not leave till I gave them to her. Greg turned to her and said, "Sorry for that, but we don't issue refunds to dumbasses, so take your fresh donuts and leave before I start pelting you with these donuts. You have 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3. She tried to huff and puff, at which point he took the bag of donuts she did not want and began pelting her with them. After she left, he told me he was proud of me and would let the boss know. I got an extra $100 in my per diem for that week. The next story is titled, "They Fired Me Before I Finished My Day." I'm a nurse. I work in nursing homes, rehabs, old folks home, etc. I do the paperwork that is sent to Medicare. That paperwork has to be submitted in a timely manner or the facility goes from $700 per day to $200 per day, just tossing numbers out. Don't remember the amount. This is important in a second. I worked for a facility that I loved. The people were wonderful. It was like a huge family. The staff ate their meals with patience, the independent people visited often, and our bosses were easy to approach. Then the bosses retired. At the same time, our board then decided that maybe we would make more money if we hired a management company. All of these changes happened within weeks of each other. They hired a traveling nurse to head up the skilled nursing unit for a year. We didn't react well to her. She never smiled, she would just look at you if you asked a question, and she decided that new rules that didn't apply to her were needed. Shortly after her hiring, she began firing everybody. It was like a war zone had erupted on the floor. Nobody smiled, no laughter, no visitors, no family meals, and loads of stress. I was the last one fired. Oh, I had been written up, 0 write-ups when she walked in, for things like cell phone in the floor, my pocket, drink on my desk in my office, water, and filling a certification form late. Doctor signed it the day it was due, but they photocopied it before I had left for the doctor's office. So they had their 3 write-ups. At 1500 on Friday, the administrator calls me into his office. I'm informed that I've been terminated. I'm floored. I work my ass off. I am actually great at my job. I've been there 7 years. I'm escorted to my office to gather my stuff. They have turned off my computer, asked for my passwords, and escorted me from the building. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. They called me in to fire me just as I was creating the packet to send to Medicare. I was never able to send it. They never asked if things were situated since it was Friday. I volunteered no information. Remember that timely manner? Well, that Friday was the very last day to submit about 30 different forms. Most were 14-day assessments that literally covered 14 days. Billing friend called and let me know that the default cost over $100,000 by the time they figured everything out. The next story is titled, "Your son's a special snowflake?" You got it, ma'am. I work at an elementary school with a child who requires a one-on-one assistant. That's me. The kid has a few things going on, both a physical and mental disability as well as a general miasma of social anxieties. All in all, a pretty good kid, but has some extra difficulties at school. His mum, on the other hand, is kind of a piece of work. She has reamed out the school and the special education department because we try to hold him to reasonable standards such as doing homework, learning independence, and interacting with peers. Now, anyone in spec ed will tell you that no, kids that require the extra help are not going to always be on grade level with their peers, but if you help support them and expect reasonable outcomes, they generally rise to meet those. She apparently thinks that we're a glorified daycare and he shouldn't be required to do any work at all. The kid picks up on this, and knows how to read a room. Any time his mum walks in, which she does often and unannounced, his entire demeanor changes, he throws tantrums, he complains that the activities he's been doing and succeeding in are too difficult. It's a real treat. So recently the kid has been doing things to get out of work. He'll lie about what work he has, he'll complain about it, he'll forget or run out of time at home. We brought this up to his mum, and, as should have been expected, we were shut down. Exclamation mark. Mum, my son doesn't lie. My son can't lie. He doesn't know how. Me and everyone in the spec ed department, are you fucking kidding me, lady? Underscore. So today, the kid was doing an independence exercise, where he's given instructions to go to one of his specials, music, PE, art, etc., without adult supervision, and his goal is to get there without stopping and getting distracted. I had to have a quick meeting with his homeroom teacher, so he had about 10 minutes to get 30 feet. When I catch up with him, he's about halfway there. Me, hey man, what's up? Kid, Ensign 53, you're not mad at me, are you? Me, no, just curious. Why aren't you where you need to be? Kid, trying to avoid being in trouble, my leg hurts. He grabs it and does a quick intake of breath. I had to stop. Me, aha. Now, I know he's lying. I also know that he has work that he has to make up because he ran out of time to do it the night before. I also know that directly after music is PE, his favorite special. Me super serious and definitely believing him and worried, oh man, that's really unfortunate. Well, I don't want you to get hurt, so here's what we can do. Let's sit down right here, and we can work on your homework that's due today. Kid realizing the crap he just dug, no, Ensign 53, it's okay N. Me interrupting and laying it on thick, no, buddy, I know you're telling me the truth, because we just had this discussion that words matter. I really don't want you to get hurt, so if you tell me your leg is hurting, we can just skip PE today and work on your worksheet here. Kid realizing what he's done, oh no. Me, it's okay bud. I'm not angry or upset. I'm just worried, if you tell me your leg hurts, I have to look out for you. We wouldn't want you to hurt yourself, especially in PE. So it looks like we've got about an hour to work on this worksheet. So, problem 1. The next story is titled, Yes sir, I'll be happy to honor your expired coupon. I just remembered this one from a few years back. I work nights at a hotel. Back then, the manager would place ads with coupons advertising rooms at a discount. In general, these coupons were a real pitter. They clearly said not valid on weekends or holidays and had expiration dates. I would regularly have to argue with guests because they were trying to use them in violation of the terms. Anyway, one day, this guy comes in and slaps a magazine with one of our coupons down on the desk and stares me down. I sigh internally and look at the coupon. It's a couple of months out of date. Me, our rate for the night is. Him, I know the rate. It says it right here. He jabs his finger into the magazine, just about punching a hole in our marble counter. Him, now you're going to honor this coupon or I'm going to call my friend who owns the company. I really want to tell him to go ahead because if he really knew the owner, he'd know that the company is a franchise and each hotel is privately owned. Instead, what I say is, me, absolutely sir. You see, what I was going to tell him before he cut me off was that his coupon was out of date and from the height of tourist season. Since the season was over and we'd already gotten snow, our regular nightly rate was almost half of what his coupon said. Since he was insistent that I honor it, I saw no reason not to charge him almost double what everyone else was paying. The next story is titled, Malicious Compliance Tribute, Grandpa vs US Military. This is a cool story about the acts of malicious compliance of my grandfather, who died a couple of weeks ago. Setting the scene, a week after graduating college, first in his family, Grandpa, a very gentle, non-confrontational kind of guy with a mischievous streak, gets drafted into the US military for the Korean War. Act 1, during basic training, he forgets to wear his glasses to target practice. His sergeant refuses to let him leave until he's hit the target at least once. Grandpa is a decent hunter, but now he can't even see the target. They're out there for hours. Finally, the sergeant comes up and tells him he hit the target. Grandpa checks the target. The hole was made from the other side, obviously by the sergeant himself. Act 2, Grandpa and his friend are told to go to San Francisco and to take a boat to Tokyo from there. When they get to SF, they see a long line to get on the boat. Grandpa's never been to SF before. He convinces his friend to visit the city with him instead of standing in line all day. They have a great day, and come back to the port in the evening. The boat has already left. They get yelled at. A lot. Act 3, the US military finds out Grandpa learned how to use a typewriter in college. Instead of sending him to fight, they let him stay in Tokyo as a secretary to a general. The general keeps sending him out to get things signed. It's hard to get people to listen to a non-officer, though. That's what Grandpa tells his boss when he complains about how nothing seems to get done. Next thing he knows, Grandpa's been promoted. Now he can order people to sign his forms. Act 4, Grandpa finds out that 1. US soldiers in uniform ride Japanese public transport for free, and 2. If he donates blood, he gets the weekend off that week. He starts donating blood every single week and travels all over Japan on the weekends. And that's how he met Grandma. The next story is titled, You Prefer Crappy Cheap Wine? Okay, here you go. This is a story my father-in-law, F, told me about his mother-in-law, Mill, who had money but was notoriously cheap with it. Dinner at her place could be a bit of an ordeal. Food was the cheapest available, the portions were so tiny you'd be hungrier when you finished than before you started, and she would do things like buy a super value no-frills supermarket-owned brand pack of mini bite-sized pies or chicken Kiev intended for parties and serve one per person as a main dish. She also watered down sauces, soups and drinks mercilessly. One year the extended family were getting together as usual for Christmas dinner at Mil's house. This comprised several nuclear family groups, each of which traditionally provided one course, and this year it was Mil's turn to provide the wine. When Mill sent F to the kitchen to fetch the wine, all he could see was a single bottle of the cheapest substance you could possibly call wine. It had a plain white label with no text other than "Value Sweet Dessert Wine" and the supermarket's logo. F said he wouldn't even have risked cooking with the stuff. Even if it were higher quality, sweet dessert wine would probably not have been a pleasant accompaniment for the main course. Fortunately, F had a trick up his sleeve. Returning to the dining room, he asked Mill as discreetly as he could if she didn't have anything a bit nicer for Christmas dinner. Her response was, "No. I prefer this. It's my favorite, you'll like it just fine." So F went back and opened Mil's crappy cheap dessert wine and also a bottle of really nice wine he'd brought with him, which he hid behind his back as he poured Mil's glass of plonk. When she saw the other bottle, she started yelling about having some respect for his mother-in-law. All he said in response was, "You said you preferred this one, so I made sure you got your favorite. What's the problem here? Everyone else really enjoyed the nice wine." If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comment.